Hello again, everybody. My name is Chris, and welcome to my little corner of the baseball world. Today we're going to take a walk back through time and a little baseball history through the lens of the 1975 MVP subset. 1975 was the 25th year of Topps baseball cards, and so they did a series within the set of MVP cards from each year in Topps' existence, from 1951 through 1974 at that point. Each card includes a image of the American League and National League MVP on the same card in their Topps card of that year. There are a couple of exceptions to that, but we'll make a note of those as we go along. So we're basically going to take a walk back through baseball time and from 1951 through 1974 and see what we can't do to enjoy a little bit of history and maybe remember and learn a little bit about some players, maybe the lesser known players who had really, really great season and won awards. So let's take a look. Let's do that. I'm going to grab my stack of cards here. I'm going to set them up over here. Excuse me for just a second. Now, I did bring along some of my friends from the 1974 or 75 set, some of my favorite cards. So we're going to take a quick look at those here before we get started. And let's hope I can get this camera right here now. And go through here. And I don't know how well you can see that. But we got the number 1 Hank Aaron, 74 highlights, Johnny Bench. We've got rookies Robin Yount and George Brett and Jim Rice, Gary Carter, and I'm going to have to move this a little bit. Bear with me here. Go back this way now and see if we can't get those in the screen there. Reggie Jackson, and then the end card, Hank Aaron bookends the set with the first and the last card number 660, Hank Aaron. So those are the friends that I brought with me to kind of oversee us and give us a good view of our time here today. So let me get that back set up to where we got it, to where we can see the cards. All right, now I'm going to put these out here. We'll put some of these up. We're going to move these around. I'm going to try not to get too clunky with that. And here we go. See what we can't do. The first card we've got is from 1951. Again, Topps initial set. The initial set of Topps in 51, a lot of people forget that they did cards that year. Really comes down to it was more of a game or a playing card style than it was baseball card style, which they changed. So this one is a mint 9. It shows us MVPs of 51, which are Larry Yogi Berra and Roy Campanella. Both catchers, both 3-time MVPs. We'll see both of these again later in the video, but these were our 1951 MVPs. Next up, we go to 1952. Got a couple of lesser known players here. This was an 8. And our MVPs that year are American League with the Philadelphia A's, Bobby Shantz, and Hank Sauer with the Chicago Cubs. And that's not to be confused with the Hank Bauer that played for the Yankees for many years. Now, these guys are interesting because they're lesser known. Neither are Hall of Famers. Bobby Shantz was 24-7 with a 2.48 ERA and a 1.048 WHIP in 1952. He had 27 complete games. MVP voting was kind of dominated by pitchers. 3 of the top 5 slots and 5 of the top 9 slots were made up of pitchers. In fact, Yankees pitcher Allie Reynolds was the second place finisher. And Yankees Mickey Mantle and Yogi Berra were 3rd and 4th in the American League. Shantz was a 3-time All-Star. Shantz won 8 Gold Gloves. and the first 6 that existed. The Gold Glove didn't come into play until 1957, I believe. And Chance won the first 6, won 8 total. And many of the games that he pitched, he actually pitched in relief more than he did starting games in his career. So a lot of those Gold Glove awards were won as a relief pitcher, which is kind of interesting to me. You don't really see that much these days. But that's the way he did it. And he did it. He had a nice little career of it. Hank Sauer for the Cubs had a nice power season, had 37 home runs, 121 ribbies. Was a 2-time All-Star over a 15-year career. He had 288 home runs, 1,278 hits, 876 RBIs over a nice solid career. So we'll stick that there. And we're going to move on to 1953. And 53 gives us another near mint 8 with Roy Campanella and Al Rosen as our MVPs. Al Rosen, I will start with him, had a monster season in 53. He hit .336 with 43 home runs and 145 RBI. And he only struck out 45 times the whole season. Rosen was a 4-time All-Star, finished in the top 20 in MVP voting 4 times, had a nice solid career, but didn't make it to the major leagues until he was 26. So his career wasn't as long as a lot of other players. Was slow to get there, but did a really nice job once he did. Al Rosen later became a baseball executive, was a president and or GM of the Yankees, Astros, and Giants, and was part of World Series winning teams from the Yankees in 78 and the Giants in 89. So a long-time executive as well as a player. So, and this is Roy Campanella's second of 3 MVPs. Next up, 1954, lots of star power here. We've got another 8, and we're back with Yogi Berra again and Willie Mays' first MVP. Good-looking cards of both players. There's not much else we can say about those guys. They are some of the all-time greats. Now we go to 1955. We are at another near mint 8. We have Yogi Berra for the last time. That's 3 times in 5 years. And Roy Campanella. An interesting tidbit is Roy Campanella was under contract with Bowman in 55, so the card that you see did not exist. That is merely a artist's rendering, if you will, of what his card may have looked like in 1955. But he did not have a Topps card in 55. Campanella, again, 3-time MVP, one of the best catchers of all time. Started his career in the Negro League, so didn't have the longest career in Major League Baseball. And unfortunately, his career was cut short. Before the 1958 season, he was involved in a car accident, which actually left him paralyzed, and he was confined to a wheelchair the rest of his life. He did regain some movement in his upper body, and the Dodgers did employ him in various capacities over the years, so he worked for the Dodgers for many years. But unfortunately, 1957 was his final season. So we're going to rotate these and put that one over here. Next up, we go to 1956, which was a huge year. This is a near mint 8 as well for Mickey Mantle and Don Newcombe of the Dodgers. Mickey Mantle, won't say a whole lot about him other than the fact that he was a Triple Crown winner in 56, and he actually led all of the major leagues in all 3 categories. That's average hits and average home runs and RBIs, excuse me. He's the last Triple Crown winner to do that. All subsequent Triple Crown winners have led their league, but have not led the major leagues in all 3 categories. Mantle hit .353 with 52 homers, 130 RBI. He had 132 runs scored, 1.169 OPS, 210 OPS plus, and added 10 stolen bases, only being caught once, just for a little extra. A lot of people forget that Mantle was extremely fast and a a very dangerous base runner early in his career. Next, Don Newcomb. He was the MVP of the National League. He was also the Cy Young Award winner and the inaugural Cy Young Award winner for the major leagues. When the award first came out, there was one award for all of the majors, not for each individual league, and Don Newcomb was our winner with a 27-7 record and a 3.06 ERA, a 0.989 WHIP. Newcomb was a Rookie of the Year, 4-time All-Star. Also started his career after a couple of years in the Negro Leagues, and like several other players and too many other players, lost 2 years to the military. So Don Newcomb gets our MVP and Cy Young Award win in 1956. Now we move on to 1957. This is what I would consider an iconic card from their non-playing days, but this is an 8.5 and features MVPs Mickey Mantle and Hank Aaron. This was Hank Aaron's only MVP winning series, which to me seems just crazy, as good as he was, but also maybe speaks to his consistency of just putting out season after season of really, really good numbers. The Braves and the Yankees faced off in the World Series in 57, with the Braves taking it in 7 games, and the Yankees returning the favor in 1958, winning in 7 games over the Braves again. One note about that World Series is Braves pitcher Lou Burdett was the Game 7 pitcher in both series, winning in 1957 with a 5-0 shutout, and getting the loss in 1958, losing 6-2. Burdett was the MVP of the 1957 series as well. We'll move on to 58 here and stick up Hank and Mickey right there. And we're going to come in 1958 with another 8 and the first of 2 back-to-back MVP seasons for Ernie Banks, Mr. Cub. I'm going to highlight Jackie Jensen here, the American League winner for the Boston Red Sox. Jackie had an interesting career, and then it was very short. He spent the first few years with the Yankees and didn't play a whole lot. Wasn't a full-time player, and eventually moved on to Washington and then to the Red Sox and became a full-time player with Washington, with the Senators. His career only spanned about 11 years, but he was top 20 MVP voting 5 different times, was a 3-time All-Star, and won a Gold Glove. In 58, he had 35 homers, 122 RBIs, and hit .286. Very nice player who just didn't have the long career that some of the others did. So, we will move on now. Excuse me, we'll put this up here. I'll keep these rotated so you can see. We're going to move on to Ernie Banks repeats. This is an 8.5, his second MVP in a row in the National League. And he is joined by Nellie Fox. Nellie Fox was what you might call a light-hitting, good-field shortstop, although light hitting is a little bit deceiving. He had good gap power. He was an offensive catalyst. He just wasn't a home run hitter. In 1959, he hit .306 with 380 on-base percentage, Only had 2 home runs, but had 34 doubles and 70 RBI, and only struck out 13 times the whole season. Nellie Fox was widely regarded as a great defensive second baseman, and won 3 of the first 4 Gold Gloves when the Gold Gloves started in 1957 for the American League. So he jumped right in there as the best defensive second baseman in the league. Now, we'll put him down here. We'll stick Ernie and Nellie there and come back to 1960. We have the first card, I believe, that did not have a Hall of Famer. This is an 8 as well, and this includes Yankees Roger Maris. Excuse me, I need to turn this way. And Dick Groat, shortstop for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Groat was an interesting case in that he was a basketball player and a baseball player at Duke University and a first-team All-American in both sports. In fact, he was drafted in the first round in both sports, and was drafted in the first round of the NBA and played one season in the NBA before dedicating himself full-time to the Major League Baseball. Groat hit .325 in 1960, had a 14-year career, was an 8-time All-Star. Just another good, solid player who was a very good athlete, but just didn't have the power numbers that you see with a lot of MVPs. Set that there. Now, there's arguments to be made that Willie Mays or Hank Aaron could have been the MVP that year, but we won't get into that in this particular video. We're going to move to 1961. We've got a Mint 9 version with Roger Maris' second MVP, and Roger Maris is the only non-Hall of Famer to have more than one. Frank Robinson had his first in the Cincinnati Reds uniform. His second was with Baltimore in 1966 coming up. And as we'll mention that Robinson was the first player that won an MVP award in both the American and National League, in each league. Maris, of course, went on to set the home run record, the single-season home run record at the time in that 1961 season. And one of the things that I thought was interesting about the Yankees is they dominated the 50s, and Mickey Mantle won 3 MVPs in the 50s and early 60s. Roger Maris won 2, Yogi Berra won 3, and then you'll see later that Elston Howard won as well. So the Yankees really, really dominated the American League in MVP voting, but it was spread out amongst multiple players. I found that kind of interesting. Next, we go to 1962. We've got an 8 here with Mickey Mantle, his third and final MVP, and Maury Wills. And this is another example. Maury Wills was not under contract with Topps, and so he did not have a card. This card, again, is one that Topps made a kind of if they were. But this particular card never existed. Wills, just to mention, is not a Hall of Famer, but was the first player to steal 100 bases in a season. I had won several Gold Gloves, was a multiple-time, I believe, 7-time All-Star, and a very, very good player who kind of set the table for Lou Brock's run and for ultimately then Rickey Henderson and Tim Raines and those to follow. So that is 1962, and I should have put 61. Pardon me, I need to get these correct here real quickly, and we'll put 62 there. All right, back to 1963. We have got a Mint 9, 1963. MVPs are Elston Howard of the Yankees, who I just mentioned, and Sandy Koufax. Koufax had a dominant 1963 with a 25-5 record, a 1.88 ERA, and a 0.875 WHIP. Hank Aaron and Willie Mays also had huge seasons that year. Hank Aaron had 44 homers and 130 RBIs, yet it's hard to argue with the dominance of Sandy Koufax in some of those years. Elston Howard, on the other hand, was the catcher for the Yankees. He took over for Yogi Berra behind the plate and was a good, solid player in 1963. He hit .285 with 28 homers and 85 RBIs and 141 OPS plus. Howard is not in the Hall of Fame, but had a nice, good, long career with the Yankees and was a big part of some of the Yankees' World Championships. All right, next we shall move on to 1964. 1964, we have another near mint 8. We have Brooks Robinson and Ken Boyer. Brooks Robinson, the human vacuum cleaner, is widely considered as the best defensive third baseman of all time. Ken Boyer, not too far behind, won 5 Gold Gloves himself. In 1964, he hit .295 with 24 homers and 119 RBIs. There's a lot of people feel like Boyer could deserve Hall of Fame recognition, or at least consideration. My guess is he probably didn't quite play long enough to get the numbers that he needed, but he did play 15 years, was an 11-time All-Star, as I said, a 5-time Gold Glover, and hit just shy of 300 home runs and 1,200 RBIs for his career. And just a good, solid player. He also had a brother named Cleet that played in the major leagues for many years as well. All right, let's move on to 1965. 1965 brings us another 8. And Willie Mays' second appearance on the list. Again, I think it could be argued that Willie Mays probably could have won 3, 4, 5 MVPs. I don't know if voters just got bored of how good he was and how the numbers that he put up, and votes ended up going to people who had breakout seasons more so than just Willie's constant superiority. I'm not sure on that, but at the same time, I know there's arguments to be made that Willie could have won more than just 2. On the American League side, shortstop for the Twins, Zoilo Versalles. Versalles had a 12-year career, but his peak really was from 1962 to 65. He was really strong in those 4 years. And dropped off after 65. After this season, dropped off pretty well. But in 65, he hit .273 with 19 homers, 77 RBIs. He had 45 doubles, 12 triples, and 126 runs scored, leading the league in all 3 of those categories. He added 27 stolen bases, and a Gold Glove to boot. So Versalles was definitely an offensive catalyst for the Twins in 1965. And I am messing up and not putting these in the right order, and I apologize. So we're going to just real quick fix this. 3, 4, 5. And so that I don't mess this up, I'm going to go ahead and take this one down so we can add 1966 here in just a moment. All right, next we go to 66. We have another Near Mint 8. And this is the second appearance of Frank Robinson on the other side of the card in the American League with the Orioles, and Roberto Clemente's lone MVP year. Both just in the upper crust of elite major league players. Both had fabulous seasons, fabulous careers, and deserve all the recognition and then some that they get. I think you could argue that Robinson is one of the most underrated great players of the game, and Clemente, while he is well known and unfortunately had an untimely death, probably was underrated as a player during his career. Now, I wasn't around for most of his career, so I think other people could probably comment on that a little bit better. But I think that argument could be made. We'll move on to 1967. We've got another Near Mint 8. And here we've got World Series foes, Carl Yastrzemski and Orlando Cepeda. Yastrzemski had a very, very long and storied career with the Red Sox. Jumped into the World Series with the Red Sox here and won the Triple Crown for the American League. Cepeda is maybe a little lesser known. Probably doesn't get the credit that he deserves. In 67, he hit .325 with 25 homers and 111 RBI. Over a 17-year career, he is a Hall of Famer, but over a 17-year career, hit .297 with 379 homers, 1,365 RBIs, had a 133 OPS plus, was an 11-time All-Star, and was the Rookie of the Year in 1958. Very, very good player that I think is overshadowed by some of the other stars of that era. So let's stick 67. We're going to stick Mr. Cepeda right there. Next, we go to the year of the pitcher in 1968. Pitching was so strong in 1968, it caused baseball to lower the mound to take away advantage for the pitchers. We've got Bob Gibson and Denny McLain. Here, I'll start with Denny McLain. McLain is the last major league pitcher to ever win 30 games in a season. He went 31-6 in 1968 for the world champion Tigers. He had a 1.96 ERA and had 28 complete games in 41 starts. Had 280 strikeouts and a 0.905 whip. That is one excellent season. Only to be overshadowed possibly by Bob Gibson. Gibson and his all-time low ERA of 1.12 for the entire season. The Tigers did win the World Series that year. Gibson did everything he could to prevent that. Was a top-notch pitcher. But Denny McLain and Mickey Lolich, the Tiger staff, was a 1-2 punch the Cardinals could not overcome. So that is a card of the 1968 MVPs. We'll go there. And next we're going to move on to 69, and we went from pitchers to big-time sluggers. Again, we've got a near mint at 8. And our big sluggers for the 69 season were Harmon Killebrew and Willie McCovey. Both are Hall of Famers, both members of the 500 home run club, and power hitters galore. One thing I noticed about Harmon Killebrew is that I believe, and I may be wrong on this, I believe he has the lowest batting average of any member of the Hall of Fame. Yet, he walked so much that his on-base percentage was very high. And I apologize, I don't have that written down. The reason that I remember that so much is because Kirby Puckett hit right around 310, 315 for his career, yet has a lower on-base percentage than Harmon Killebrew, who had a 255 career average. Anyway, both great sluggers. 1969, we went that lowering of the mound. Obviously had a big change in Major League Baseball at that time, and pitching wasn't as strong when they were throwing from 5 inches below. And that is the current height of the mound now is 10 inches, where it was 15 before. Next up, we go into the 70s. We've got Johnny Bench and John Boog Powell for the Orioles. Bench, we all know, is one of the top catchers ever to play the game. Powell, on the other hand, was a power-hitting first baseman. He hit .297 with 35 homers and 114 RBI in 1970. Excuse me, had 163 OPS plus. His 17-year career spanned had 4 All-Star appearances, 2 World Series wins with the Orioles, and had 339 homers, 1,187 RBI, and 134 OPS plus. And may also be just as well known for having Boog's Barbecue restaurant just on the outside of Camden Yards, just outside the right field fence. On the walkway there, very, very good barbecue. I don't know if it's still around or not, but the couple times that I went to Camden, I certainly made a point to stop there. And good eating for sure. Okay, so we're going to go here for 1970. And we've got just a few more here before we wrap this up. Next up, 1971. We've got a Mint 9 version of Vita Blue and Joe Torre. 71 was Vita Blue's first year in the big leagues, first full season, I should say. He went 24-8 with a 1.82 ERA and had 24 complete games and 8 shutouts, along with 301 strikeouts. Vita was a dominant pitcher in 71, and in fact, he was one of the most dominant pitchers of the 70s. Just didn't quite have a long enough career of dominance to get into the Hall of Fame. Just fell a little bit short. I'm going to pause here for a second and add a story about Vida. Some of you know I used to work in the minor leagues when we did a bobblehead doll night honoring Vida Blue as when he was a member of the Birmingham A's in the late 60s. And Vida did an appearance that night at the ballpark. And I'm going to bring this up and see if I can't show you. And this is the bobblehead doll that we gave away. And I'm not getting him in the picture very well, but he did sign this doll. And that's what we gave away. Picture him in the Birmingham A's uniform. Every year we would give all the players and the staff members one of the giveaway bobbleheads. Well, I was in my office. I was preparing. I always wrote the names on the boxes of each player and staff member just in case one grew legs at some point. And Vida was in the office before the game, and he walked by and asked what I was doing. I told him. We talked a little bit. And as we were talking, one of the interns came up and asked Vida if he would sign his bobblehead doll for him. And Vida said, sure. And then Vida looked at him and said, I'll tell you what. He goes, grab that chair from the office across the hall, drag it in here, and let's do this. And immediately started basically a chain to where I would unbox all of the bobblehead dolls, give them to Vida. He signed every single one of them for every player and staff member. And then the intern would put them back in the box before we distributed them out, the rest of them out. So this took about a half an hour, and we talked baseball and talked a lot. Vida was just the nicest guy in the world and was very, very accommodating. And it was a very, very good experience there to deal with Vida on that. That was a lot of fun. Real quickly, Joe Torre, back to 71. We all know Joe Torre as the Hall of Fame manager. So he technically wasn't a Hall of Famer as a player. However, he was one heck of a player. And in 1971, Joe hit .363 with 24 home runs, 137 RBIs, and had 352 total bases, leading the league. Torre was a good, solid third baseman and a very, very good player for a long time in the big leagues. Now I'm going to move Vida back out of the way here a little bit. We're going to go to 1972, and we've got another near mint 8. We're back to Johnny Bench, his second MVP award, and Rich Allen with the White Sox grabs an MVP here. Allen is most often described as one of the players just on the outside of the Hall of Fame that deserves further consideration. Professional hitter. He played for 15 years in the big leagues and was just a constant bat in the lineups for the Phillies and then White Sox before ending his career with a couple other clubs. But in 72, he hit 37 home runs, 113 RBIs with a 308 average, and a 199 OPS plus. Again, Allen is one of those guys that really, I think, is very likely to get into the Hall of Fame at some point. Next up, we go to 1973, and we have another 8. And this one, we've got 70 stars, Reggie Jackson and Pete Rose. Reggie Jackson was a cornerstone of the 3 A's World Series championships from 72 to 74. I'm going to go ahead and bring this one in. I've got another bobblehead doll of Reggie in a Birmingham A's uniform. He was on the 1967 Birmingham A's team. He did sign that Mr. October underneath his name. And he was Mr. October. We know enough about Reggie that we don't have to go on and on there. Pete Rose, again, not a Hall of Famer. On a technicality, we'll leave that debate for another day. But again, a big key cog in the Big Red Machine who took over and won the World Series championships in 75 and 76 after the A's 3 in a row. The A's are the last team to win 3 World Series titles in a row. And our last card features 2 non-Hall of Famers. And let's just move him out of the way here. And we have, and I didn't do this again, 72. 73, right there. Get those correct. 74, we've got another mint 9 and MVPs, Jeff Burrows and Steve Garvey. Burrows had a 16-year career, was a good solid professional hitter, topping out at 41 home runs in 1977. In 74, he hit .301 with 25 homers and 118 RBIs, a 162 OPS plus. He was a 2-time All-Star and just a solid hitter throughout his career. Garvey is another one of those that is often mentioned about deserving Hall of Fame consideration. He was a stalwart of the Dodgers teams of the 70s and the Dodgers infield of Garvey, Davey Lopes, Bill Russell, and Ron Cey. All right, that's all of the cards that we have. A couple of interesting statistics from this group. We had, first of all, on grades, we had 5 9s, 2 8.5s, and 17 8s. That set is ranked in the top 10 of the PSA set registry for the MVP series. We had 29 Hall of Famers and 19 non-Hall of Famers in the 24 years. So lots of non-Hall of Famers had big years and were big enough that we're able to win MVP awards. Of those 29 Hall of Famers, 19 unique, and one of those was Joe Torre, who's a Hall of Famer as a manager. Yogi Berra, Roy Campanella, and Mickey Mantle all had 3. Willie Mays, Ernie Banks, Frank Robinson, Roger Maris, and Johnny Bench all had 2 apiece. Maris being the only non-Hall of Famer that won 2 MVP awards in that time frame. So that kind of sums up our video. I would ask, I thank you for sticking it out this long. I hope you found this interesting. If you do, I would really appreciate if you would like the video and also subscribe to the channel. We have more content coming up. We'll have PSA reveals. We'll even open some cards. Lots of stories, lots of history. I like to feature the players and the history of the game within my videos, so sometimes they get a little bit longer, and I do appreciate you sticking out and sticking with me for those. So again, I'm going to say goodbye. I say thank you again. Please like and subscribe. It helps out very, very much, and I hope to see you again soon. Have a great rest of your day.